Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I'm going to be doing a review on Crystal Renee Hayslett's Keep It Positive Sweetie show. This is going to be the episode that she did with Shannon Wallace. I believe it's episode number 4 of her 10th season. So let's just get into it. As I said in the last review that I did for her episode, I always walk away from Crystal's shows inspired, encouraged, motivated, energized, like to go. And once again, I believe that's intentional by her. You know what I mean? She's definitely spent time praying over who she's bringing over to the couch, on her show and why and things like that. And so anyway, just for those who may not have had a chance to go watch it yet, or just kind of not sure about, don't know the people that she's bringing on. And sometimes, that kind of delays you from running over to watch certain people and things like that. And I'm speaking out of certain things for myself. Sometimes when I don't know the person, I'm not so quickly to run to whatever show that they're on, whether it's Crystal's show, the person could be on Sherry Shepherd or anything like that. It's just I don't know them, so I don't really know what the draw is. But with Crystal, I think all of her, I think it's safe to say that all of her guests are brought on to motivate, inspire, encourage, and hopefully propel you and motivate you to move forward in your dreams and things like that, because that's what she does for her community and things like that. So anyway, let me just get into it. This was very good. There was a few key points that I'm definitely going to talk about. He definitely, as she does with all her guests, is she, pretty much kind of asked, what their journey was and things like that. So he did talk about his journey and things like that. And one of the things that stood out for me in his growing up and talking about his journey is he was saying that how he was shy when he was younger, and that he really didn't become super social until he was in college. And he said that he was in sports and everything. He just wasn't really somebody who was just a social person, and that didn't come until he got into college and he was just around different people and things like that. And I think the reason that stuck out to me was because I'm in this place in my life right now where I have become more settled into how Abba has wired me, and I make sure that I'm intentional about staying not comparing myself to someone else, and just leaning into the wiring that Abba has done to me. And what I mean by that is I have a ton of friends, and well, I don't want to say a ton of friends, but I have friends. And a lot of them are super social butterflies, and a couple of them are super extroverted, right? And I am an ambivert. I am good at home by myself, and I'm good in a crowd with other people. But if I don't necessarily need a crowd, you know what I mean? And so my friends are, like I said, super social, and I feel like they're just extroverted. From what I can see, they are motivated by being out and everything like that, where I can take it or leave it. And that's not always a good thing for me. But with that being said, when I was younger, used to try to push myself out to go to different places where when I was younger, whether it was clubs and all that kind of things. And it was so interesting because my mom always knew, and she used to kind of catch me in different situations and in a way steer me out of it without making it seem like it was something that I didn't want to do, if that makes sense. Like, she was very good about protecting me and things like that. So I'm going to tell you guys this. So when I was like 18, 19 years old, and I was in Arizona. I had moved back to Arizona to get to know my dad's side of the family. And in the process, my dad's side of the family is really loosey-goosey with rules and things like that. And so when you're 18, you are basically considered an adult. You know what I mean? And so what happened was I would go out to different clubs with my cousins and them. And I'm not 21, right? I'm like 18. I don't even think I had turned 19 yet. So I'm 18, maybe close to 19. But I happen to have favored one of my cousins to the point where you know, I was able to get into these particular places and spaces that I wasn't supposed to be into because of my age and things like that. But because I favored my cousin, I was able to get in, or kind of like had hookups and stuff like that. And I'm not going to name any of the places, of course, because it could possibly get them in trouble for sure. But anyway. So one particular evening, it was so funny. I was at this club and was hanging out with my cousins and, you know, a couple of aunts and things like that. And my mom walks in, right? And she comes over and, you know, we just like, oh, hey. And I'm just like, cool. Like, hey, mom, like, you stuff. And she's like, hey. And so she goes and gets the guy who's managing the place and she brings him over to me. And she's like, you know, and he knew, like, people, my parents grew up in the same neighborhood. My mom and dad grew up with each other. They have known each other since they were 9 years old. And, you know, fast forward, I was here, but the whole neighborhood knew both of the families. And so whenever I used to come back in town, they used to always kind of show me off, you know, this is Tiffany, this is, you know, they would tell them, you know, these are my, you know, you know, this is their daughter kind of thing. And so anyway, my mom goes over and she tells the guy that she knows, and she's like, oh, he's like, this your daughter? And she's like, yeah. And she goes, so she's 18 years old. If I ever see her in here again before she's 21, I will shut this place down. And I just looked at my mom like, what the heck? And like my aunts and my cousins, they were there, but they was all drunk and stuff. And I wasn't drunk, but I absolutely was drinking, right? And just everybody just like my mom shut the whole thing down. And so immediately I had to leave, right? So and my mom just walks off, right? She just gives me a kiss, and she's like, when she walks off and she goes on about her business, and immediately I was like, you got to go, Tiff. I was like, okay. Well, they call me T. So they were like, T, you got to go. And so I was like, okay. So anyway, I say that to say, she did that because when I asked her, she goes, because you didn't even want to be there. And in all honesty, I really didn't want to be there. And for years, I mean, decades almost, like it probably took me until I was probably, I feel like maybe really 35, where I settled into my wiring. I just don't like, first of all, I was able to do it sooner than I was supposed to. So I tell a lot of people, like, by the time I was able to go out and club and do all that kind of stuff, I didn't want to anymore because I had already been doing it with some of my cousins and things like that when I wasn't supposed to. But the other thing was, it just really wasn't my element, you know what I mean? And I was not wired that way, but I used to try to force myself to go into these places and spaces, even when I didn't want to be there. And so I say that to say, when it comes to the way that Abba has wired you, or, you know, for those who say God, it's fine. It's Jesus. However he wires you, I say to make sure not to compare yourself, because comparing yourself and trying to walk outside of the way that he wired you can absolutely delay certain things or put you in positions and places and spaces that you wouldn't have been, and trouble can happen and things like that. And for the record, I did get into some trouble because I was in certain places that I shouldn't have been. And I was just going just because that's what I, you know, was kind of expected to do or thought I was supposed to do because of my age and because of who I was with and things like that. And, you know, that is stuff that you learn as you age and things like that. But, I actually finally started giving into the fact that, you know what, we just wired differently as I got older and stuff. So if you want to go do that, go do that. Like, you know, sometimes I'll go with you as far as my friends and things like that. And sometimes I won't, you know what I mean? But, I say that to say, like, it's just important to lean into your wiring and not compare yourself or or let people make you think that something's wrong with you because you don't have that particular interest. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not necessarily saying that's where he was going with his, but it just, when he brought up that he just was quiet and his family thought something was wrong with him, they just didn't know what. And he said it wasn't. He just didn't really talk. You know what I mean? And so if he would have allowed the family stigma or conversations, whether they said it to him or not or anything like that, I don't know. But if he would have let it make him think that something was wrong with him, who knows where he would be right now. And for those who don't know, he used to model. He's an actor. He's producing and a whole bunch of other things and stuff. So he's living a good life doing what he likes to do, but it was because he leaned into what he was wired to do, what he liked to do versus what other people wanted him and thought he should do. He mentioned that he was for a while thinking about doing like social working and stuff like that, but it was too much. It's so heavy to the point where he was like, well, if I can go into the creative field, because I forget exactly what, I think he modeled or he started taking pictures, photography. And he was like, but if I can make make the same salary taking pictures than what I was doing with the social working, then he was like, that's a win for him because it's making the same salary, but it's something that he loves to do. And I love that thought. And I thought that was so profound because I'm even doing it later in life and I'm good with it, but that's where I'm leaning into with my creativity and trying to, utilize different venues to put my stories that I'm writing out. And so kudos to him on that. And hopefully other people who are picking up and watching it are being motivated to do the same thing. Another thing that he brought up is during one of the a difficult time, his brother had was killed, and he basically was saying that the way that he dealt with that was basically by pouring himself into work, into the point where he had work became a distraction for him dealing with his grief. And that stuck out because I think whether it's grief or whatever we are doing, I know for myself especially, I'm guilty of doing some similar things, meaning when stuff is just too much and overwhelming, instead of sitting in it and trying to deal with it, whether it's grief process of losing an actual person. You can go through grief in various ways. It does not necessarily mean a person. You can lose a job. That's you can grieve the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship. You know what I mean? It's grief has to do with loss. So if you lost something that meant something to you, you'll go through a grief process. But sometimes what we do is we pour ourselves into our work to get distracted so that we don't have to go through the feeling of the loss and the grief and the emotions that are coming up, because you don't want to feel the pain. You don't want to really deal with it now. But what happens is it just ends up delaying it, but it never goes away. You know what I mean? Whether you push it down and eventually you blow up and it surfaces somewhere, but it doesn't go away. And so I've seen myself do that in a couple of ways. Yes, in the way of losing someone who was like another mom to me. With jobs, with friendship relationships and things like that. So I've went through those processes of grief in those particular areas, a job, you know what I mean? And just didn't really know, only knew how to handle it from a certain level. And instead of praying about it and really asking the Lord or seeking some help through therapy or church or whatever, I just pushed it down and I tried to suppress it. And that didn't really help anything, of course. So that was really good that he brought up. Another thing that he brought up, which I kind of feel like lately I've been hearing a lot of people say this to, and what I mean is, and this is kind of paraphrasing, is that when it comes to the art and how they ended up getting into it, especially if they're writing and producing their own stuff, and which is what Shannon is doing, it came from a place where I can do that, and so I'm going to do that, or I didn't really, or I want to see certain things happen this way instead of the way that they did it in the TV show or the movie and things like that. And so He said basically that's what it is. He's basically, to paraphrase it, you create what you want. So if you're not seeing exactly what you want on TV or in the movies or whatever you're creating, then you create it. And that's what he's doing with his thing. And that's actually exactly in the space that I'm in right now as I begin to build my own projects and stories and things like that. I'm not seeing what, some of the stuff that I want to, and not at all, but just enough, maybe, let me say it that way, in certain aspects. So I'm learning to write it myself. And then I'm going through the process of how do I, bring that to life so that people can see it produced on television, movies, and things like that. And so very, 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 very key to what I think a lot of creators are running into in the moment. And honestly, that's in any creative way. Like, you can be a creator and create a business, right? Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be art, music, or any type of entertainment. Like, you know what I mean? You're a creator. If you start a business and you wanted it because you seen that there was an area that was being, that's lacking or a void, and you decide to create that, then guess what? You've created this product, service, or whatever. And so I feel like, you don't want to limit the word creative when it's inspired, when it's inside of you, especially as a child of the Most High God, because he made us in his image and likeness. And because of that, and he's the creator of everything, then we are creators of things as well. So I think it's important to dig deep and really kind of find out, if you don't know, what you're supposed to be creating. But it seems like another thing that, it's probably in you. It's just trying to figure out how to dig it out of you if it's not so something that you can, pinpoint immediately. But it probably, I think sometimes we make things a little harder than it is. It's really sometimes a super surface. Like, as I think back, I think I've mentioned in some of my videos, like, I've always liked to write and create stories since I was younger. And I just didn't know when I was younger that was something that you can do. And then by the time I did find out that it was something that I can do, it was kind of like, you getting ready to graduate, you got to go get a job, you need to do livelihood, and reality started coming in. And I don't mean that like in a negative sense, because I feel like our family and friends, especially those who did not go after necessarily their dreams, and just kind of hit life and was like, I just gotta go and make a living for my family and things like that. That's no hit at them. You know what I mean? It's like, just life happens, but a lot of people get pulled away from things and passions and dreams that they've had on the inside of them since they were kids, to the point to, so that they could, provide for themselves, their families, and things like that, to the point where they forget, or they don't really know how to, articulate what their passion is. What would I do for free? You know what I'm saying? Like, and they say, find something that that you would do for free, but get paid for it, right? Because then it's kind of like you're not going to work. And that's kind of what they say to use to, help pinpoint what your passion is. Because if you'll do it for no reason, if you are already doing it for no reason, and that's kind of how it finally just came to my, this aha moment in my life, is because I've been writing stories, TV shows, movies, and stuff ever since I was younger, in one way, shape, or form. And it just, I have them already. So it was just like, and I honestly thought everybody did that. Like, it wasn't until I was like truly like 20s and 30s, where I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was just like telling her about this. And she was like, where did you come up with that? And I was like telling her, we were just talking. And I was like, wait a minute, you don't do that when you watch TV? Like, you don't see what you can change and what you would change and then go do it? And she was like, no. And I was like, really? And it was so funny to me. But such an epiphany at the same time that, and from then on, I just started continuing to create, and the things that Abba was putting on the inside of me, I wrote them and everything, to the point where now I have the material. Now it's just about how do I get it out and produce it, and that's what I'm working on. Hoping to you really utilize AI to help put some of those storylines out into the point until I can get like some for real human actors, because I do not believe that AI will ever be able to take away the emotion that people see when they watch television shows. When you watch Crystal on Zatima and Sisters, when she's doing those really emotional scenes, AI ain't gonna be able to do that. That's emotion. That's something that she's felt before. She's pulling from that well, and that creates good acting. Whether it make you mad, make you cry, or all of it. And I don't know that AI will be able to do that anytime soon, let alone right now. So anyway, that's pretty much what I got from the episode. So I'm going to go ahead and end this particular video here. Let me know if you guys got a chance to watch it, what stuck out with you, for you, and let's just get into the conversation down below. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.